Hello everyone. Today we are going to start with the part 3 of fundamentals of economics. The first topic for today is economic problem. To understand economic problem, let's take an example. In our example, let's take an economy, and this economy is planning to buy defense equipments, and at the same time it also wants to invest in educational institutions in order to improve the educational quality of the country, in order to provide free education for the younger generation in the country. So for purchasing defense equipment, the country requires, let's say, 1,000 rupees. Let's take a small number. So it requires 1,000 rupees to purchase defense equipment. And for building education institution, let's say it requires some 900 rupees. It requires some 900 rupees. Now, how much is the economy having? How much is the economy having? Let's say the economy totally has just 800. It totally has just 800 rupees. So with 800 rupees, with 800 rupees, how will it be able to achieve these targets? It won't be able to achieve. There are three ways in which this can be done. The first way is this entire 800 rupees can be used to purchase defense equipments, or else this entire 800 rupees can be used to build educational institutions. So these are two ways that we can think of. The third way is we can invest some 500 here and 300 rupees in this, like 500 in defense, 300 in educational institution as per the need and the requirement of the country. So that is one way. Or else we can invest 400 in this, 400 in this, based on our need and the requirement of that time. Either we can distribute the resources, or we can invest entire resource in one thing. But if you invest this entire 800 in defense equipment, then you're going to sacrifice on the education part. And if you're going to invest entirely on the education part, you will be sacrificing the security of the country, and sacrificing on the security of the country is again risky. So both of these are important. So we need to allocate this 800 rupees that the economy is having in such a way that both these needs are met, both these requirements are met. I know it cannot be met fully. It cannot be met, but at least how much ever possible. Like for example, let's say that right now, even if you spend 500 rupees on defense, it will be sufficient. If for just 500, it might not be an excellent job, but it's like okay, it's sufficient. So in that case, let's go for 500 for defense, and remaining 300, let's say it is sufficient for educational institutions. So if that much is sufficient for the time being, let's do it for the time being. Let's invest 300 here and 500 here. We are not at this kind of situation. Let us not look at fully satisfying the requirements. Instead, we are trying to partially satisfy we're trying to partially satisfy to the limit after which even we are feeling safe, and for today, or for some days, or for some years, we are we are fine with the decision or the resources that are allocated. This is called as matching the unlimited wants. So these are our unlimited wants. Even if we buy 1,000 defense equipments today, one thing is for sure, that tomorrow better defense equipments will be produced. Then after that, even more better defense equipments will be. Again, we want another 1,000. Again, we want another 2,000, 3,000. So the wants are unlimited. So these wants are unlimited in nature, and the resources are limited. So the resources just limited to 800, because that's what the economy is having. It's just having 800 rupees. It's just limited resources. So this limited resources has to be invested in such a way. It has to be allocated in such a way that these unlimited wants are met, and we need to make the best use of these limited resources. So the economic problem is faced by every economy, and the economic problem is that every requirement of an economy cannot be satisfied fully. It cannot be satisfied fully. There is always a need to match the unlimited wants to the limited resources. And the resources are limited in quantity and in use. For example, let's take gold. It is limited in quantity. Gold is valuable because it's limited in quantity. If it is unlimited in nature, then it will not have value. So there are resources are limited. Even if you take coal, that also is limited in quantity. So that's how resources are limited in quantity. And there are resources that are limited in use also. For example, if there are 10 laborers working for a firm, so these laborers can either let's say there's one labor, so this labor can either make cookies or he can make cake. We can't tell him to make both. Okay, either or else. Let's take another example. If this we can't tell the labor to make food at the same time, even use the machinery. So it's like even in use, they are limited. Like in the same 1 hour, we can't tell him to do both the things. So in this way, resources are limited in quantity and even in use. And the Samuelson's economic problem, Samuelson's economic problem is what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. And this sums up the economic problem. Samuelson's economic problem helps us understand the economic problem better. He helps us understand the economic problem through the three questions, that is, what needs to be produced, how to produce, and for whom to produce. The first question is what to produce. So an economy has to decide what has to be produced, what goods or services has to be produced, and whatever is selected, what are the goods or services selected, and in that we need to decide in what quantities the selected goods or services has to be produced. And the next thing that has to be decided, an economy has to decide the best combination of goods and services that it has to produce in order to meet the requirements of the society. Let's take an example. Let's say there's an economy and we need to decide whether we need to produce cake or whether we need to produce chocolate or whether we need to produce a combination of both. So in this case, let's take production possibility curve to better understand. Let's say this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. Okay, so this is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. And the x-axis, let me keep it as cake. Okay, write it as C-A-K. Okay, cake, and on the x-axis, let me keep it as chocolate. I'll write it as CH. This is chocolate. There's chocolate on the y-axis, there's cake on the x-axis. Now let me draw the production possibility curve. This is the production possibility curve. This curve is showing the different combinations in which chocolate and cake can be produced. In this, now let me mark different points. This is the first point. I'm marking this as A. Then this is the next point. This is one point. This is B. Let me say that this is C. And this point, let me mark this as D. And then let me mark a point here also. Let me say this is E. And another point inside the production possibility curve, let us name this as F. So these are the points. Now let's understand the meaning of these points. First, let's take point A, what it means. Point A means only chocolate is being produced. Only chocolate is being produced and no cakes are being produced. So the economy is using its entire resource. The economy is using all its resources just to produce chocolates, and it is now producing no cake. Point D means the opposite. As per point D, if we are choosing to produce at point D, that means we are producing only cakes with the resources that we are having. We are using our entire resources. The entire resources of the economy is being utilized to produce cake. That's what point D means. And none of chocolates, and there will be no chocolates that will be produced at point D. And at point A, only chocolates will be produced and no cake will be produced. At point D, only cake will be produced and no chocolates will be produced. Point B and point C are different points on the PPC curve. This is representing the combination in which chocolates and cake can be produced. For example, if we take point B, if we take point B, we are producing more of chocolates and we are producing less of cake. If we take point C, then we are producing more of cake and less of chocolates. So the economy has to choose whether it has to produce at point A, point B, point C, or point D as per the needs or the requirements of the economy. So the economy needs to understand what is actually the requirement of the society, and based on that, out of these possibilities on the PPC curve, the economy has to decide at which point they need to produce. They can choose the point. It can be A, B, C, D as per the economy's requirements. Now let's understand what is point F and point D. If any economy is producing at point F, it indicates underutilization of resources. This indicates the underutilization of resources, and which is bad. This shouldn't be done. And in case of E, this is overutilization of resources, or we can say that the economy doesn't have enough resources to produce at point E. The economy is not having enough resources to produce at point D. So the economy cannot produce at point E. Even if it does, it has to overburden the existing resources in order to produce it. For example, if a labor is working for 8 hours to produce chocolates or cake, or a combination of both, then the same laborers will have to be made to work for 16 hours. That means they're going to lack sleep. That's going to affect their health. It will have a lot of impact. So this E means this is not possible at present. This is be like overutilization of the resources, and we cannot achieve point E so easily. This will be achieved with time, so this is not possible. And F, we shouldn't be producing at F, and E is not possible. So the economy has to choose between these 4 points, that is A, B, C, and D. The second question is how to produce. How to produce the desired quantity of goods and services. So in the previous question, by answering the previous question, an economy understands what it is going to produce and in what quantity it is going to produce. So now by this question, we are going to understand how we are going to produce whatever we have decided. So how to produce? Now there are two things that we need to take care. First thing is the technique that has to be used in the production. Like for example, you can use capital intensive, labor intensive techniques, or we can go to more modern. We can use modern equipments. So like that, we can decide. The economy can decide the techniques. The economy can decide the techniques to be used to produce the desired goods or services. So the economy has to work on which technique it has to use based on the resources available in the economy. For example, in India, there is a lot of labor. So labor intensive techniques in India is doable. Similarly, in the US, the population not so much, so they can go for capital intensive techniques. So it depends. The economy has to decide what is good for them. Next, another thing what has to be decided is the combination of factors of production that is needed. Combination of factors of production that is needed to produce the desired goods and services. For example, if I decide to produce cake, or if I decide to produce chocolate, for that I require, let's say, sugar and chocolate syrup. So these are called as factors of production. I require sugar, chocolate syrup. I require labor. Let's say I even need one machine, and I need packaging services. I need a place. So I even need a land. I need a building so that I can do this activity. So I'm requiring labor. I'm having raw materials. I'm having a capital in the form of land and building which I've taken on rent. So in this way, there are a lot of factors of production for producing the chocolate. So we need to decide the best combination of factors of production. For example, if I'm going to produce just two chocolates, and for that I'm buying a very big area, a very big building, it doesn't make sense. So we need to decide the best combination of the factors of production. And let's say we are producing some 5 lakh chocolates per day, and then we are having an area which is very small and is not sufficient, then that also is a wrong combination. So we need to have a right combination. We need to have an efficient combination of resources that will help us in improving the productivity of the economy. So the best combination of factors of production needs to be decided. It needs to be decided how many people have to be employed to produce a chocolate. It needs to be decided how much of which raw material has to be purchased. It needs to be decided what size the rooms or the building or the land has to be, so that we can fulfill all the activities that we are willing to fulfill. So we need to decide the best combination of all this. So this also comes under the question how to produce. So in how to produce, we're deciding the best combination of the factors of production that is needed to produce whatever we need desire to produce, and we need to decide the techniques through which you're going to produce it. Now let's take an example. Let's take the PPC curve to little more understand the situation better. So like how we saw previously, let's say this is cake, write it as CA. Let's say this is chocolate, CH. This is on the y-axis, this is on the x-axis, and we have a production possibility curve. And here we have a point. We have a point A. So let's say we are producing at point A. Okay, we are a labor intensive economy, we are producing at point A. Now after some time what happens? After some time we decide that the economy is having sufficient money. Let's start using some capital equipments, and let's not fully rely on our labor. So then we'll be shifting to the next production possibility curve. We'll be shifting to the next production possibility curve. There will be a rightward shift in the production possibility curve. What happened in this case is, we are producing at point A. We are producing at point A. This is some combination of chocolates and cake. At this point, we were producing and we're happy. But then the economy was growing. And as the economy kept growing, we could afford some capital equipments which we couldn't afford earlier. So we decided to buy some 3 4 capital equipments, and because of using those capital equipments, our production goes up, and again there is growth that is happening due to the economy grows. And then now there are more resources available. The productivity of the resources has increased. The productivity of the resources has increased. So the production possibility curve shifts right side, like to the right side. That's rightward shift happens. So from this production possibility curve, it shifts to the second production possibility curve. And now the economy will be producing at point C. It will be producing more of cakes. It will be producing more of chocolates. So this is how we can understand this. How we can understand how to produce through the production possibility curve. The third question is for whom to produce. The economy has to then decide who will get how much of the output that has been produced. If 5 chocolates and 5 cake cakes have been produced, then the economy has to decide who will get what, and that is decided on the basis of whoever is able to purchase it. Whoever is able to purchase it, they can have them. This is referred to as the problem of distribution or the problem of allocation. uh, let's say there are luxury items and there are some necessities. People would go to luxury items only after their necessities are fulfilled. So obviously rich people would go for people are rich would go for luxury items. So the purchaser of luxury items would be people who are rich. So if there's an economy having more rich people who can afford buying luxury items, then in such an economy the production of luxury items will be more than the production of necessities. But if there's any poor country which cannot afford, in which there are which doesn't have people who can afford such luxuries, then they'll focus more on production of necessities when compared to luxuries. So then again, we need to decide how the goods that is being produced has to be allocated in the economy. This is called as a problem of distribution, which is answered by this question for whom to produce. So we need to the think about who is there. We need to think about demographies of the economy. and then we need to decide for whom we are producing, whether there's a market for whatever we are producing. It should not happen that we are in a very it should not happen like, there's a very poor economy and you're producing lot of luxury items, because there will be no one to purchase, and then again it will be a total waste of resources, which we will again they will have to export it to one. So in this way, this decision has to be taken as to for whom to produce. This is the third question. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you.